Welcome to the Daily Surrender, a space for real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about what it truly means to live in alignment with God's design. I'm Jennifer Ragazzo, a soul-aligned wellness coach who is far from perfect and still figuring out this whole human experience, just like you. Here we talk about the messy, the beautiful, and everything in between as we learn to let go, trust more, and step into the peace and freedom that's already waiting for us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Daily Surrender. I'm Jen Ragazzo, your host. In today's episode, I'm going to invite you to pause, to reflect, and to get radically honest about the programming that you've inherited, that we've all inherited from culture, from the systems of this world, even from religion, and how that programming that we take on can really separate us from the voice of God within, how the programming of this world can thicken the veil, so to speak. Disclaimer. This conversation that I'm having with you here today is not about deconstructing for the sake of rebellion. I'm not having this conversation with you to be polarizing. It's about really waking up to the deeper truth and reclaiming direct access to God. When we can do that, we find that freedom that every single one of us is seeking. We're living in the fullness of life. So let's talk about it. It's something that I'm so passionate about because when I take a look at the root cause of disease, that's what I've been doing as a coach for over a decade now, working with hundreds and hundreds of people. They'll come here with their symptoms of pain. And the symptoms might be anxiety, depression, apathy. They might be more physically focused, constant chronic migraine headaches, gut issues, insomnia, hormone imbalances, whatever it is. And we unpack it, we dump it out on the table, and we take a look at what's underneath the symptoms. Is there breakdown in function in the body? So we don't stop there either. Even when we identify, okay, we've got breakdown in function, we don't have good, strong digestive fire, we might need to bring on some digestive support. All right, well, it's still not the root. And the more that we get underneath it, the more that we're really able to identify the misalignment from each person's unique divine design. When we're misaligned with our own unique divine design, we will live with dis-ease. We're not living as we're designed to live, and it is unique for each and every one of us. But when we're programmed to shoot ourselves, when we're programmed to look outside of ourselves for the answers, when we're programmed to follow like sheep and put ourselves in boxes and bow down to the systems of this world, we lose ourselves. We lose our connection with the divine within. And that in and of itself creates the dis-ease, the inflammation, the discontent. And I love seeing that discontent bring people into a place of wanting to unpack it, to understand it, to dump out all the puzzle pieces and to identify. And what I have found personally and professionally, what we start to do is we start to really critically think, challenge the narratives that have been fed to us from the conditioning that we entered into in the world, oftentimes from the conditioning within our original home, our parents, and all the people and the systems around us. So let's talk about what programming in both a worldly sense is and also religious. So in a worldly sense, we are programmed into a hustle culture. We're programmed into this, let's go, let's grind. We work 9 to 5 jobs, at the minimum, and we take weekends off, right? It's like work 5 days, take 2 days off, 2 weeks vacation a year, and you go, 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 right? And we all just follow because that's what we're programmed to do. We're programmed into a constant seeking of things outside of ourselves. We have a consumerism culture. We're being sold to the newest, greatest, best, the shiny objects all around us that we need. You absolutely need this to be happy. You need this to be fulfilled. You need this to be healthy. We idolize systems. We idolize even science, right? So we've got a lot of systems in the world, and many people bow down to them. Well, if the white coat doctor from the medical system says that this is the best thing for me, I'm not going to go within and think. I'm not going to use my critical thinking mind and get to know myself. I will say yes. If the political system says that this is what is, we follow like sheep. I really believe that since 2020, we've had a mass awakening. And that's why this conversation is an important conversation for us to have, because as we awaken to the amount of programming that's around us, we are able to start to dismantle it within ourselves. We're able to dissolve all of the mental constructs and the limiting beliefs that we erect out of the conditioning and the programming, and really root ourselves deeply in truth and step away from it. And that, again, is where we find freedom. Religion. So within religion, we've got a lot of fear-based teachings. We've got punitive theology. We've got gatekeeping of divine access. Jesus came and spoke the message that the kingdom is within. And then religion got constructed, and there is this confusion within religion. Like God is outside of us and we need to go to find God. Go where, right? There's shame doctrines. There's idolizing scripture over spirit. So I have personally identified so much programming within my own life in my journey into finding peace and freedom and this abundant life that I've always been seeking, but I was seeking it outside of myself for so long. And where I am today is in a place of really embodying the freedom found within, the kingdom within. But it took me a long time to get here. I chronically shoulded myself in all the systems, you name it, all the systems. Even when I would step outside of one system and say, that system is not for me, I'm not buying into all the things that are being thrown my way, such as allopathic medicine, I would go out into another system, but even another system. So even the worlds of holistic medicine, holistic healthcare, there's programming there. There's programming everywhere. And it's up to us to really start to discern what's right for us and what's not, what's rooted in and grounded in truth. And again, from there, right for us and what's not. And I got caught up hard in the religious system. I was raised in Christianity and many different denominations within Christianity, but I was a participant in many different religious systems and structures for the majority of my life. And because I didn't quite understand myself and I didn't quite understand that I had a lot of conditioning that had me thinking that I didn't know all the answers, that the answers couldn't be found within me, that I wasn't inherently right, that I was inherently wrong. Therefore, people outside of me knew better. So I would go to other people. And even when I'd have this gut feeling that something wasn't right, I'd keep my mouth shut in fear of being wrong. I was a chronic people pleaser. So in the religious system, I kept God in a box. I was so terrified to take God out of the religious box. When I'd hear things that didn't make sense, I would just shove them down and put them in a place, like put them in another box on another shelf, my questions, my doubts, instead of feeling confident enough to challenge them myself. And I didn't have to challenge them in the system itself. I could challenge them with God within me. I was really shrinking myself. If I'm being honest, I wasn't using my voice. I was terrified to use my voice. I was terrified to say at times, not all the time, but what I really believed, to say that doesn't sit right with me. That doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't even make sense to me, because the system I was buying into, that the system knew better than me, whatever the system was. But for me, religion was really a system that, I felt very programmed in. And once I was able to see it, I started challenging more and more and more. And from there, I developed a deeper, richer, more personal relationship with God, the God that is within me and is within you. And I stopped giving so much power away to the things outside of myself. And I started giving power to one, just one. I was outsourcing truth to others who seemed to me to be more spiritually credentialed. I thought, well, they went to school and they went to seminary and they studied theology and they've studied scriptures. I must not know what they know. And then I started to realize, oh my goodness, wait a second, they have the same God inside of them that I do. I have the same access that they do. We don't even realize that we've been programmed until we pause long enough to hear the static and the distortions for what they are. And it took me really radically slowing down and quieting the noise around me, stepping away from listening to people and things and constantly throwing the kitchen sink at myself to try and find answers in systems. I had to step back and I had to really, really go within. And that's when I was able to start to see and hear truth. So there's a cost to buying in to programming. There's a lot of different negative effects of living under these unconscious scripts that we're being fed. I think the biggest cost is separation from God. Now, I want to actually preface that by saying that we're never separate. There actually is no separation. That's truth. We can never literally be separate from God. But the separation that I'm talking about is separation that happens in our consciousness, where we're giving something else power over the one true God, power, source. So when we start giving other things power, we create duality. And there is no duality. That's not living in truth. We end up living with chronic anxiety. We're living in a state of never enoughness, because by, again, looking outside and buying into the programming and thinking that we need another thing, we need to learn more. It's always going to be outside of us. So if we buy into that, it's not actually going to fulfill us, because that is not our divine design. So we are going to start to feel like it's never enough. We're never enough. And we get caught on the hamster wheel of constantly seeking and searching and seeking and searching. And it feels like you're trying to fill this bucket that's got a giant hole in the bottom. It just keeps leaking out and you never get it filled. We end up with what I call disembodiment. It's the opposite of what we're invited to do. So in disembodiment, we're always chasing and we're never arriving. It's exhausting. I was so burnt out when I had my big, like, come to my knees, dark night of the soul moment in my life. And that was in 2020, ironically, when the rest of the world was also being heavily programmed and fed narratives of so much fear. And also, there was a lot of control going on. I now can see all of that as being a huge blessing, because it helped us to wake up. It helped me to wake up. It was coinciding, like, right alongside what we were going through collectively in the world, was right alongside of my dark night of the soul. So for me, I really see all of that as just a huge divine call up for me. So during that season of my life, and I've talked about it in previous episodes, so I'm not going to get into the details of it here, but I really became humble to seeing whatever it was that God wanted me to see, because I was so exhausted from trying to do it the world's way. I was so exhausted from doing it my way and from the constant searching and seeking and not feeling the deep peace that I craved on a soul level. I had such fear of making the wrong, and I'm using air quotes for those who can't see me, move without leader, someone in power telling me what to do. That terrified me. And so when we live into these unconscious scripts that are programmed into us, this is what happens. Can you imagine what happens to the physical body when we're in this state? It's constant chronic stress, nonstop stress. And that stress, that elevation in cortisol, leads to chronic inflammation. It leads to dis-ease. The most dangerous part of programming is not that it's loud, but that it's subtle. It disguises itself as truth, as righteousness, as wisdom. But God is not in fear. God is not in shame. God is not in hierarchy. God is not in separation. Those truths right there were what helped me to get out of being so programmed, to get out of the trap of disembodiment, and to really begin to embody truth. The more that I embodied truth, that again, there is no separation, that God is not in fear, God is love, that shame is not from God, that God is not in this hierarchical system of there's people in this world that are better than other people and we're to bow down to them and give them power. The more that I embodied that, the more that I was able to stop giving other things so much power and stop fearing not giving things power. So for me, again, the moment of realization came at the beginning of my dark night of the soul. I can't say that it was an easy process because it took me time to really step into humility. It took me time to get very, very honest with where I was giving away power, the stories that I was buying into. I did a lot of, is this actually true? And is this rooted in truth with a capital T? And I know I've shared this on previous episodes. You can go back to episode 15, where I have my friend Carmen Hunter on, and we talked about using MDMA guided therapy. But for me, using MDMA helps me tremendously because I was really programmed. I'm a critical thinker, and yet I had some earlier conditioning that had me fearing using my voice, that had me not thinking that I was inherently right and that I was instead inherently wrong, and therefore giving away power to people outside of myself. So that earlier conditioning, I didn't understand was there. I didn't understand the root of it. And when I did MDMA, it helped me to get into my subconscious mind and really see the constructs that I had erected. And God met me in that. God was all over that. It helped to lift the veil so that I could see, oh, wow, I have direct access to God. God is right here inside of me. Infinite intelligence, unlimited possibilities, unconditional love is right here inside of me. And really understanding that God is not out there to be chased or appeased, but inside of me, that God is ever present, that God is indivisible and infinite, it changed everything for me. And from that place of empowerment, every day I challenge whatever narrative comes my way. I'm able to slow down. I live in stillness more than I've ever lived in stillness. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't even know how to do that, I just want to encourage you that you can get there. And give yourself grace and compassion, because we've all been heavily programmed. The first step to unprogramming ourselves is awareness that we've been heavily programmed. So if you're at that first step, congratulations. That's a huge step. The identification of the source of any pain is the first step to change. So good job. If you're there, hang on. I want to give you hope. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm sharing this message. So God is spirit. I want to get really clear on this, because some of the programming that's out there within religion has us believing that God is a man in the sky. And maybe that comes from the Sunday school felt board, God, Jesus, heaven, angels, right? And I understand we're teaching little children and we're trying to teach them in a cartoonish type of a way. But that early programming that I was privy to had me thinking that God was outside of me, that God was up on a cloud in the sky. And that didn't program into me that God was spirit. God is undividable. And that the animating intelligence and the loving awareness is actually me at the deepest level. It's me, it's you. So God, again, I want to emphasize. So God is not a man in the sky. God is spirit, and God is undividable. Yet God personalizes himself. He individualizes himself in each and every one of us. So the spirit is God, and the spirit is inside of us. Isn't that beautiful? That is so incredibly beautiful. Like when I think about that, I just get brought to tears. I want to read a scripture verse to you. It is really anchoring for me. It's from Luke 17:21. Neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Within you. Let's lean into that. So the kingdom is not a location. I grew up visualizing it as a location. I'm not criticizing any one of the people who were in my lives throughout my religious upbringing. It perhaps was something that I picked up because of some of my own conditioning or the way that I'm wired, but I know I'm not alone in it, because although I would hear the kingdom is within, I still thought and treated the kingdom like it was outside of me, like I had to go to it. I had to do something to access it. The kingdom within is actually a state of being. It's not a church building. It's not a guru or a certification. It's in presence. It's in stillness. It's in listening. It's in embodiment, embodying love, embodying God, embodying that we are inherently worthy, that we're created on purpose for a purpose. We don't need an actual mediator to access God. What we need is remembrance. And we see that in Luke 17:21 here, when we're told, again, the kingdom is within. That's the message that Jesus came to share with us. And it was a radical message at the time. He was hated for it. He was hated so much, he was nailed to a cross for that radical message, because it threatened the systems. You see that? It threatened the systems of the world. So today, it's really no different. It is no different. But that's the message that Jesus came and he said, can you follow me, please? I'm here to show you how to be in the world and not of the world. The world hated me and the world will hate you too. But fear not, right? Don't fear that. For the kingdom of God is within you. You have full access to everything that you need, and you don't need to walk this life, this journey all by yourself. So I now want to talk a little bit about the enemy, not as some external attacking force. The enemy is internal. The man mind, the egoic self rooted in fear. It's rooted in fear. It's rooted in the idea of separation. It's rooted in survival. It wants to survive, right? So it fights. The ego is this hungry dog. The ego is this voice that says, you're not enough. Don't trust yourself. You'll mess it up. Who the heck are you to even say that, do that, be that? It's the part of us that's really edgy. It can be deceiving. It can whisper to us lies. It's coming again from the man mind. That's not the divine mind of God. I really look at it like it's that egoic self. Religion, oftentimes, part of the programming within religion is that it reinforces this fear. It cloaks it in language that seems really righteous, but it cuts us off from empowerment. And I want you to understand this, that any voice rooted in fear is not the voice of God, period. So if you're hearing voices that are rooted in fear from any systems, whether it is a religious system or a political system or a healthcare system or a school system, any system, right? A family system, that's not the voice of God. That's world. That's from the world, right? You can choose to step away and not give it power. You have that choice. And when you give love full power, love reigns, love wins. Love is the only thing that is real. Step out of fear and back into faith. So, reclaiming our power. There are endless possibilities when we begin to strip away programming. We learn how to trust ourselves again. We learn how to hear God clearly. We stop grasping. And instead of grasping at everything, last week's episode, I talked about the grasper effect. Instead of grasping at things, we start allowing. We live in flow. When we're living in flow, life becomes so much easier. One of the biggest things that clients come here with is chronic fatigue. Like they're just so exhausted. And we take a look at where they're giving power away. We take a look at all the energetic leaks, and I can't tell you how freeing it is and how much repletion of energy it brings to people when they stop living in a state of constant grasping and giving power away. And instead, they live in a place of flow, of surrender. It's a deeply rooted internal state that brings peace. It's a frequency of love. And from there, there's no more afternoon naps or feeling like they're crashing at 3:00. You start to really live as if the kingdom is again within you. You're living in the frequency of the kingdom. You're not trying to earn it. You don't have to earn it. It's right there. You don't need to perform to be a part of it. It's already inside of you. I want to encourage you to start to notice where you've been outsourcing your knowing. Ask yourself some questions. Whose voice is that? So when internal voices pop up in our mind, and they will, we have research says over 60,000 thoughts a day, right? So as you hear these thoughts, ask yourself, whose voice is that? Is that voice coming from somebody outside of me? Has it been programmed to me? Is it, what my mother says, what the church says, what I heard in a school system, what I heard at, well, whatever, right? Or is that the voice of God? Is it the voice of truth? What fear is driving that belief? Unpack it. I volley back and forth when I go into one-on-one coaching relationships with my clients, and I invite them to message me in between our sessions in my client portal, and they'll message me thoughts that are popping up, narratives that they're challenging, fear. They might have fear bubbling to the surface, and I will always reflect back questions to them. Where is that thought coming from? You're feeling very anxious. What's driving the anxiety? What's underneath it? Get underneath. Okay, you're feeling fear. Well, what is the belief that you're holding on to? What's the story that you're holding on to? What if God was already right here inside of you? What if you actually fully embodied that? Take that thought and run it through that belief, not a belief that you're all on your own having to figure this out all on your own, right? So ask yourself those questions if this is something that perhaps you struggle with. And I am going to take a wild guess that you occasionally do because you're a human being. Welcome to being human. So as we wrap up this conversation, I could talk about this for hours and hours, but I really wanted this episode to be an episode that started to bring awareness to the whole idea that we are programmed. We're programmed because we're in the world, right? We don't need to be victim to it. There's no point in getting angry and stepping into victimhood and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so programmed, woe is me, right? It's actually a beautiful opportunity to be human and to be alive and to be here on the earth for a time such as this. We're going through a great awakening. And that great awakening is really exciting, but it does invite us to get radically honest with ourselves. It invites us to challenge narratives. It invites us to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to get comfortable being hated by the world like Jesus did, to get comfortable using our voice when others are still stuck in the 3D density of the programming. There's nothing to fear. Do not fear is quoted 365 times throughout scripture, one time for every day. Repetition, 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 right? I'm going to invite you right now to close your eyes and put your hand on your heart and whisper, God is here. I am not separate. I am safe to hear. Tap into that place within you. Begin questioning everything that you've accepted without discernment. And not in rebellion. You're not being rebellious by questioning. Oftentimes as children, we are told to stop, and that's looked at as rebellious. That's programming right there. But instead, do it from a stance of reclamation. Reclaim the one true power that is within you. You, my friend, do not need to seek. It's not about seeking. It's about remembering who and whose you are. My goodness, the enemy. The enemy, again, is our egoic mind, and the enemy does not wear horns. It wears familiar thoughts. It sounds like fear. But God, remember this, God is the still, small, quiet voice of truth within you. And you've always had, and you always will have full access to that. If this episode has blessed you in any way, shape, or form, will you please share it with somebody else who needs to hear this, and take a moment to rate and review. If you are looking for deeper guidance, for a lantern to be held to illuminate your path, a guide by your side, you can apply to work with me in the link below. We can book a discovery call and hop on and have a conversation about what you're looking to achieve. If you are looking to deprogram, to get out of the density of this world and really step into fullness of life and live with health and vitality, I would love to have a conversation with you. Thank you again for joining me on the Daily Surrender. Until next time, keep surrendering and keep embracing this beautiful, abundant life that God has designed for you. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.